Well, let's crack on. Sorry to interrupt the chats and catch ups. um, so let's just take a moment. I just want to acknowledge the traditional custodians on the lands where we all meet today, and just want to acknowledge and respect the everlasting connection to land, waters, and culture, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. So thanks heaps for joining. Obviously, like this is just something we want to be able to put together in lieu of the actual event taking place. But at the end of the day, it's just something really great to be able to put on. Someone told me the analogy the other day of what is it? Dandelions. The dandelions are those flowers that have heaps of seeds, and then you blow them and they go away. Yeah. So like when you do stuff like this, it's like it's a dandelion flower, and right now we're just like blasting it apart, and we don't know where those seeds are going to land and what they're going to do then. But that's not for us to worry about. But what we're going to do now is just have a little bit of a yarn about training and how it relates to the macro, the micro, and everything about it. Because running is something that can be an amazing thing, but it's also something that if we do it too much, it can have the opposite effect of what we originally tried to do it for. So running can be a really good part of a healthy lifestyle, but also if you do it too much, it can be an unhealthy part of a lifestyle. So getting that balance is really, really important. So that's one of the big things that we want to have a yarn about tonight. And then there's so many other things we'll have a chat about in later sessions. But tonight, that's kind of the main preface, and hopefully that message gets along. So obviously for Wild Places, running is a little bit more than just running. What we really are after is making sure that the time that we spend out on the trails, enjoying the trails, we also have an equal relationship with the time we spend protecting those wild places. And so, for Wild Places, wants to bring those two worlds together of environmental conservation and also of trail running, because they can coexist, and it's going to be amazing when we really thread that through the culture of trail running. I can't. Oh yeah, here we go. So yeah, just there's a few things that we really want to strive to achieve for Wild Places. Obviously, protecting wild places is one of them, but there's so many other elements to that we all need to work on equally to make sure that the wild places that we want to run in are protected, and things like the amazing culture that we have in places like Australia and farther afield that have been almost forgotten and decimated. That's something that we really want to make sure that we thread into the story of For Wild Places. Again, changing that trail running culture, or not so much changing it, but growing awareness of bigger things for it, and also making sure that trail running and the outdoor space as a whole is inclusive of everyone, and we're welcoming of everyone as well. So tonight we're going to have a little bit of a chat, and it's going to be specifically about kind of the Pilliga Ultra, because that's the event that we all in many ways wish we were at in some regards, but also an event that we're working towards, so we can all enjoy a sunset like this. So really, when we want to talk about training, there's this really simple equation that kind of breaks it down in three simple ways. Okay, so there's stress plus rest equals growth, and you can see that there, and that's like this growth equation. So what happens is running is something that is a stress on your body. And so what we need to do is, if we stress our body to get the benefit of it, we also need to rest our body. Okay. So one thing I got told many, many years ago is you don't actually grow stronger and better as a runner when you're training really hard. That's actually when your body is breaking down, and that's when you're damaging your body. So you're actually getting weaker when you're training. Okay. What happens is, when you are growing stronger and when you are adapting to the running, is in your resting period, because your muscles are recuperating, they're recovering, they're stitching themselves back together. All those little micro tears that happen when you're training, they're all getting fixed in your resting period, okay? And then if you do that in the best proportions, your stress and your rest, that's when you actually start to grow. That's when your body will identify a stress that it needs to adapt to. So the next time it gets faced with that stress, it is more capable of handling that situation, okay? And so through a consistent and healthy training program, you build a base level of like homeostasis in your program and in your training, okay? So the things to remember with this are stress includes things like running, cross training. Really, like any exercise is a stress on your body, okay? Things like having some bad sleep. The workplace can be pretty stressful sometimes. So, you know, that might not be physical in terms of your movements and things like that, but it can be a stressful place psychologically and mentally, and that plays a part. Having like below average nutrition and hydration, you know, some days you just are not prepared and you just have to eat something that's kind of not really what you know to be really good for you in terms of nutritional value and whatnot. Hydration as well. Like some days you might just, you know, forget your water bottle when you're doing a 3-hour drive, and then you've got a whole period there where you're not hydrating. Things like mental fatigue and worry. Worrying is a big stress on your body and your mind. And also, like in a lesser extent, things like doing, you know, yoga is still a small stress on your body, although it's like it's some people consider it to be you know, not as big of a stress, and it isn't. But you know, if you went and did yoga for 12 hours a day, like you're going to be pretty ruined, okay? So it's understanding like it is still a stress, but it's obviously not as extreme and not as intense as something like running, okay? And things like, you know, some people say, oh, sitting on your ass and doing nothing is resting. And it's like, well, yeah, to a certain extent, but if you sit all day, then that can also be seen as a stress on your body because you're just cramped in one position all day, something that your body isn't used to, okay? So stress can be a number of different things. You've just got to know that, okay? You've got to know that when you're stressing yourself, and then rest can be a whole number of different things as well. So having really good sleep, sitting down and reading, you know, relaxation in whatever way that is for you, be it like sitting in a bath or meditating, or, you know, just lying in the grass. Having good nutrition is really important for your rest and recovery. Hydrating well is really good. Again, just like sleeping, you just can't overstate how important that is. Also, like sometimes having the ability to ask for help is something that allows you to have more rest in your day. And also being able to say no, like the power of saying no to so many things also allows you to have rest. So like it's really simple, you know, like if something stresses you out, well, that's like the opposite of that. That's going to allow you to have that space to rest and recover. Okay. And so those two things is really, really important in the macro sense of life, because everything can be seen as a stress. And then also in the macro sense of like, okay, I just want to be a runner and I just want to train for this running race. So understanding that. And then growth, right? Growth is, well, what is growth? Like you've got a goal that you want to obtain and you want to grow towards that. So you're most capable of like achieving what you want to achieve in that period of time when that happens. So you want to grow your ability to handle that situation. So it could be a race, right? Like it could be achieving a certain time in a race. It could be achieving a certain position in that race. So it's understanding what we're even growing for is a really big thing, okay? Having a long-term strategy, understanding that taking small steps is really important in growth, okay? There's a real an analogy that a good friend of mine told me many years ago, and that's about a phone book. And a phone book, you know, an olden day phone book, right? I don't know if they're still about, but they're super thick and they're just indestructible, okay? Like they're indestructible. They're so tough. You can't break one, okay? But they are made up of very, very gentle and delicate, thin pieces of paper. But there's just so many of them put together. And if you were to take that view or that like analogy and place it on your running, so like instead of trying to get fit for a 100K run in 1 week, you need to understand that like every single day is an opportunity to put another thin piece of paper in your phone book. And that phone book needs to contain many, many, many days of training or many, many pages to build out to that thick, indestructible phone book, which in our case is the thick, not thick, but like strong, indestructible runner. So we want to understand that analogy. Okay. So it's consistency, small little steps consistently is going to allow you to be a stronger, capable runner to achieve your goal. And also having a longer term strategy towards growth and understanding what you're growing towards is going to allow you to avoid burnout if you apply the stress and the rest equation equally. Okay. If you just stress yourself, you can get injured and you can burn out. But if you balance it properly and you're not, rushing towards that, if you've got patience, then that allows you to do it a lot more in balance, and then it allows you to grow to what you want to grow towards. Cool. Any questions? Any questions? Okay.
Not yet.
Sweet. So how do you scale that stress plus rest equals growth? Well, like, okay, the perfect thing is like the Olympics, right? And I think this is lost a lot in trail running and ultra running. Like I know people that try to do 500-kilometer races in 5 months, and that's like a challenge. And like, yeah, it is a challenge, but 500-kilometer races is a shitload, and it's a big load on your body and your mind. And so, the Olympics is on. It just was on, and the Paralympics is coming up as well. And these people, that's like people who are in the Olympics, that's like the goal, right? And every Olympic cycle, they have a 4-year block that they can use to get ready for the Olympics. Okay. So you just think about that. So if someone wants to run a gold medal, then they've got 4 years to plan to get to that, right? And that just allows you to understand the scale of what you're working with and what other people can be working with. Okay. Like so many, I remember a coach, Matty Abel, was saying this the other day. Matty Abel also has he's the co-founder of the Capra app that the Pilliga Ultra routes are on. So Matty is a great coach, and he was saying that like a lot of people always come up to him and say, I want to run a 50K and I want to do it in 9 weeks time. And it's possible, but is it the healthiest and safest way to go about it that's going to give you longevity in your running? Well, the jury's out on that, but a lot of people, you look at the stats on it and how many people get injured because of that. Well, that's one of those things. So you've got like things like a 4-year Olympic cycle, then you can break that down to look at like a 12-month cycle. So what does your year look like? And then what we did with Pilliga is it's like we put together like 12-week training plans. So that's like understanding 12-week blocks that you're working towards. And then also things like seasonal changes, like in Europe and America, they've got the winter season and the summer season. So you're running for 6 months in the summer season, and then you're like out doing snow sports and you're skiing or snowboarding, cross-country skiing for the other 6 months. So there's this like real gap, and you can look at that as like one's like way more stressful than the other one. So like that's a different macro scale of this whole rest and stress period. Okay. So people in Europe, they train hard for 6 months to do running, and then they don't run, which could be seen as like a restful period for your muscles in the running sense, and they do things that are less impactful like skiing and all of that in the winter. So you can break that down, like look at what your year looks like, look at what your month looks like, look at what your week looks like, and look at what your day looks like. So how do you stress yourself and then rest yourself in a day? Well, typically you sleep, for whatever, 8 hours, and then the rest of the time, 16 hours, you're awake. Okay. So what are your daily routines that allow you to rest properly and to train properly? Okay, so the same thing, like we'll have a look at the training plan in a bit, but like you can see, well, we'll do it now, but you can see that like this is just a snapshot of one of the Pilliga Ultra 20K training plans. And you can see like Monday is a run, Tuesday is a rest, and then you've got 2 days of running, and then you got a rest day, and then 2 days of running, right? So that's that equation in a week. Okay, so you've got stress, rest, stress, stress, rest, stress, stress. Okay, and so that gives you like a balance of how you kind of break down the week. And the other thing too is understanding that some of these days here, say you can go for an easy run or a cycle, or you can rest. Okay, so it's understanding you have to individualize it yourself to know that where you are in your running journey, so you can stress yourself only to a point of healthy stress, and then rest accordingly. Okay, and then within that, right, there's periods of, say, like on a Wednesday is a bit more of a session focused training day, and so there's a lot more stress in like the 10K effort, right? But there's less stress in the warm up and the cool down. So that's a really micro look at how you apply the stress plus rest equation in an actual training run. So you warm up, right? You can consider that to be less stressful. Then you run hard for a period of time, so that's more stressful. And then you recover in your cool down, and that is just the stress plus rest equation, but it's in different intensities and it's at different extremes, but it's the same principle going there. And then the next day you have an easy day, like a harder training day followed by an easier training day. And that allows you to apply that stress plus rest equation throughout your training week. And that's where the training plan in its layout week to week is derived. Okay. So yeah, you can look at it as a micro, and then and then if you take your food, for instance, is like, okay, like you've got your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right, and you're eating, or like some of us kind of just graze all day. So I guess you eat during the day and you rest eating at night. So like trying to apply this equation in different facets of your life allows you to kind of grow and adapt accordingly. And then one of the biggest things, right, is like having a purpose for each thing, for each run, for each week, for each cycle that you're applying this to is really important, because then like you can allow yourself to have a bit more patience, because you'll know that you don't need to run 100 kilometers the best you can tomorrow, but you've got that later on down the line. And so you can, and as long as you know that's the purpose, like what's the purpose of today? The purpose of today is to like rest a little bit more because I trained harder yesterday. Okay, so I've got a purpose. And then the next day, what's the purpose of today? Well, today I'm going to train a little bit harder because yesterday I rested, and I'm prepared now because I rested to train harder. And so assigning a purpose to each one of your sessions and your day and then your week, it all kind of adds in, but it's all based on that equation, right? And you got to, and like I said before, you've got to understand that running is an impactful sport. It is a big stress, and everyone is an individual, and everyone is at their own stage in their running journey. So someone who's doing 10 kilometers and then backs it up with doing 20 kilometers and then backs it up with doing 10 kilometers in a week, they are just at a different stage. So you can't apply their training to you. You need to understand where you are and what fits in your abilities as a runner and as someone who's trying to train for the long term or trying to train towards their goal. Okay. Any questions? All right. So like I said, like you can see here in this training plan that, like it says here under Friday, it says your rest day is the most important training day of the week. Okay. Because that period is where, I said before, that period of rest is where you actually start to grow stronger and better. That's when you are adapting to running as a stress. Okay. And then making sure that, like, you do things like including uphill hiking, and understanding that applying things like hiking, walking, cycling in your training, that's your ability to use stress in a more less intense way. Okay, because you're still applying a stress to your body, but you understand the intensity of that stress. Okay, so say going out and racing for 10 kilometers is the highest intensity that you apply to your body in terms of stress. Well, then along that scale, sleeping is like the lowest intensity, and so cycling will like fall in the middle there. Okay, and that can be a really good thing to help complement your training. So you're really kind of you're gently stressing the cardiovascular system. You're gently stressing your legs because they're not impacting, but they are moving. So you're getting that blood flow. You're getting that flush of new blood through your body and your muscles, and you're moving them. So like understanding where they all fall and how they can be used is a really important thing. So yeah, and like easy runs. Again, if you look at an easy run, like what does that mean? Okay, like say if you've got a scale out of 10, well, like say your easy running wants to be, between even 4 out of 10 effort to 6 out of 10 effort. You really want to be easy. Maybe I'd even say 4 to 5, not even going a 6 out of 10 effort. Like you want to be able to talk after your recovery runs. You want to be able to like feel better than you did when you started, right? That's just one way to look at it. And there's so many ways to look at this too. There's so many experts out there, people that are far more qualified than me. But this is just one thing that I've really taken away from spending a lot of time with a lot of people that dedicate their life to coaching athletes, and also kind of experienced it myself in many ways. So in saying that, what I would recommend is there's a couple of resources that like I appreciate, and I also like get weekly newsletters from or whatnot. And these resources are also backed by people that I know and I trust. Like Pillars, which they'd be stoked that I spelled that wrong. But Pillars that's great. That's got a training app as well. So that's like a great resource, and it's not just the physical. It's like physical and emotional fitness and how they blend together. I Run Far always drops out some pretty good stuff. They can be very race focused, but their content that is about running and growing as a runner can be really, really good. Also, Fast Running does a bunch of great, like really small little bits of insight, and that's very kind of like road track. It's pretty focused on like the pointy end of the field and small little things you can take away. And there's so many more out there. But like these are just some that I'd recommend, either subscribing to their newsletter and just see what pops up, and then, yeah, totally unsubscribe if it doesn't work for you. But these are definitely things that I've been able to use along the way. And yeah, that's like, without like rambling on too much more, that is like, in a nutshell, kind of, well, it's not really in a nutshell, it's a pretty freaking big nut, but that's kind of like that stress plus rest situation when it comes to training. And so looking at, say, like the time period leading up to Pilliga Ultra, which is now sitting at what, like 10 weeks or something, that in itself, yeah, that's where these training plans were derived from, that kind of method of thinking. And yeah, it's just kind of like looking at how you can, take a second to look at your running journey over the next like 5 years or 10 years, and then work back from that, applying this concept. One other thing that I really enjoy listening to and learning about is how, like another great example, like we spoke about the Olympics and those people being at like the pinnacle of their sport, right? Well, if you look at long distance running, the marathon comes to mind. And if you look at the very, very best marathon runners in the world, they will do one marathon, maybe 2 marathons a year. Okay, they do a spring and an autumn marathon. Okay, that's when the two times are to do those hit outs, and that's it. Like they spend so much of their year focusing on those two like major races, and within their training blocks they've got like 10K races, half marathons, etc. But they're like, they have those two specific time periods where they're going after their A goal, and they have time off afterwards. Like it's been said numerous times that the best in the world, like the East African athletes, they take time off, they put on a little bit of weight, they totally back off running, and they just go enjoy themselves, and that allows them to like really, really rest physically and mentally, to then bounce back as a physically and mentally as well, to be ready to go again. So it's can be really hard to understand to what level of burnout you have in terms of physical and mental, but unless you go through one of these big training cycles and apply these rules, then you may never know. So it's just an encouragement that the best in the world do this kind of stuff. They train hard, but they rest hard, and then you can apply that as well, because it's super important for your longevity in the sport and your longevity in this community as well. So yeah, I am going to stop right there, but that's what we're going to say. Pillars is spelled with a Y. That's autocorrect. That thing right here. So autocorrect. Okay, so any questions?
I'm interested to know, like, Damon, are you doing a plan, or like which event are you doing at Pilliga?
Sorry, what was that?
Which event are you doing at Pilliga?
The 50.
Nice one. And are you following a training plan of any kind?
No, not yet. I've been intending to start the one that you guys have provided.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for me, my running, I'm pretty like at the moment just like a bit all over the place. Like I'll leave the door and just run for as long as I feel like running, and then come back. And it's really cool at the moment because it's a new area and it's like a pretty epic place to run. So it's just pretty fun getting out there. But yes, I've been intending to follow it a little bit more. And just sort of like, I guess my thought was this was the last week I was just going to do a bit more running, just get my body used to running really regularly again. And then I was thinking from next week, trying to pick it up a little bit more.
No, I'm just interested because it is like when you kind of haven't done it before, I find the plans are, well, they're good for me because they kind of are like a recipe. You know, if you follow the recipe, you'll be able to do it at the end. You know, it's kind of like if I tick all the boxes, it means that I'll be able to do it at the end, and like, you know, with varying degrees of success in terms of like just getting across the finish line. But yeah, not knowing that kind of right mixture of like too much or not enough, or like that kind of in between. Because often like, you don't feel like it or you do, and then like, you know, especially where you are, like you might just go out for a massive day and then be like completely tired and not want to do anything for a few days, but that's also okay, as opposed to like, you know, you just go with the flow and do it because you love it, being outdoors, as opposed to it being a chore. But
yeah, for sure.
But I do have a question, because what are strides? Is it just like good technique? What's like the point of strides? Because everyone talks about it.
So doing strides is so strides is it's relaxed, faster running that puts your body through a full range of motion, but not for a long enough time for it to get too stressed or too damaged from that situation. So strides are really only like, you know, they can be anything from like 10 seconds to 25 seconds, but nothing generally too much more than that. And they just kind of, they really force you into good form, full range of motion, and they just really kind of, they're just that little spike, like that little you know, it's just that little boost in your training. So because if you say go out and do an easy run, right, and you're just recovering and you're doing an easy run and you're just shuffling along the whole time well, like that's good because you're in a certain effort level and that's what you should achieve, right? But doing some strides, it just kind of like, it kind of gets your brain and your muscles talking as well. Like it helps build those neural pathways that so your body and your mind knows, okay, yeah, this is running at the best I can do it with the best form. And generally, like we run in with the best form when we're kind of like, unless you're a really, really, really good runner technically, you do that when you sprint, you know, you kind of move everything in that full range of motion. And so they're good for, yeah, obviously doing that, but not for a long period of time. So you're actually like damaging or stressing yourself. So yeah, they're kind of just this little, it's like, it's almost like it's an exercise for your body and your brain to make sure, oh yeah, cool, that's running. I know running, but you do it really relaxed and you do it really kind of controlled, and you're not like sprinting, you know, you're not sprinting, you're just relaxed, full range of motion, fast running. And yeah, you know, they get you to breathe heavy for like a very small period of time. So again, you're just kind of like just touching on that system, but you're never going into any kind of red zone or anything. So and yeah, just like a really kind of yeah, if you do them, you'll really start to understand why they are, or how they work and how they're beneficial. Yeah. So yeah, and it's just super interesting, because if you do strides, like sometimes you're like, oh, I really can't be effed. Like, I just want to do an easy run. But you do your whole easy run, and then at the very, very end, you just, you know, do like 4 strides, see how you feel. Do 8 strides, see how you feel. And it's just that little kind of like click back into all those other systems, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. Like, I did think I was only keen for an easy run, but I am now able to also kind of put my body throughout full range of sprinting, like running motion and everything. Actually, like, I don't know, Paige, maybe you've got a way better way of explaining that, because that I feel like sounds a bit vague, but it's yeah, but I don't know if you get asked to do them in your training, or if anyone else does, by the way.
Yeah, I do strides. Usually, yeah, they are usually on the end of an easy run. So I'll do like, I don't know, 45 to 55 minutes of an easy run, and then do 4 by 20-second strides. And I think, yeah, it shouldn't, I heard someone say, I can't remember who it was, that to aim for fast, not forced. So you shouldn't be like straining and like making them something that they're not. But yeah, just focusing on form and sort of feeling smooth, I guess, not straining towards it. And I kind of like, sometimes I do get to the end of an easy run. It's usually on a Monday, the day after I do a long run on a Sunday, and it's like I don't really feel like doing them. But after you get 1 or 2 done, you do actually feel a lot better.
Yeah, they actually, like, they should feel nice, right? Like you've kind of, like you said, they're not this like, yeah, you're not straining, like you're just got this opportunity to run really free, really fast, but not worry about like a certain speed or a certain time or anything. And then you just kind of like put yourself through that. Yeah, thanks, Paige, that's spot on, mate. Been doing your homework.
No, that makes sense. I think there's one section where I do them, it's on the way home and it's all downhill. I'm like, and then you just kind of like let go, and it's like, you know, and you pass people and they're like, whoa, look how fast you are. And you're like, I've been doing this for like 5 steps, but you know, you can assume that I've been doing this for like the entire run. But yeah, it feels good.
Well, yeah, and like, you know, you can equally do them uphill too, because that forces you into this like really good, strong technique, where you can, yeah, just do them uphill. But again, it's not about speed. It's not about anything. It's like focusing on your form and your technique and just being relaxed, and it's just moving your body through that range of motion, that really true, good technique range of motion. And that's really the purpose. Yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah.
That's all from me. Thank you.
Cool. Well, yeah, like I said, without going on too much, yeah. Has anyone else got any questions? Well,
I have one.
Yeah.
Just about motivation. Like at a time when a lot of people are in lockdown and exercise is kind of the only freedom, but it's not quite the mindset that you have. How do you kind of get motivation, I guess, to get outdoors, or noting that you can't, I'm stuck in Sydney, so I can only kind of pound pavement and not get into the trails. Do you have any, I don't know, advice for motivation?
Well, yeah, it just comes back to like why, like, and this takes some like personal search work, but like, you know, why do you do anything? Like it really, I think in times like we're so, in our world, we're so easily distracted by so many things. We don't ever really have to think about why we do stuff. You know, like we're pretty well accommodated for distractions and do things because they're fun and whatnot. But yeah, once like monotony comes into it and routine, and there comes this element of boredom, right? And what's boredom? Like, why do people like not want to do something? Well, maybe they're just like not excited by it. And I think that yeah, like understanding that, like, to find motivation, you really need to find a reason for why you do anything, you know, like and that can take answering some like bigger questions in life to want to get out for a run. But like, it's not, you know, you're also doing that so you yeah, you're like motivated by your true life goals as much as you are about a small running goal, you know. And how does that running goal, or how does that exercise goal play into the bigger goal of who you want to be in the world? And I think that, yeah, I mean, you know, it's just one of those situations. And I feel like one of the other things to add to that is just like, I feel like there's sometimes a little bit too much pressure to do things perfectly. And I feel like that, you know, just getting outside is sometimes enough. Like, you don't have to train, you don't have to do a certain distance, you don't have to do a certain pace or time or anything like that. Sometimes just getting out for a walk is like enough. And I feel like there's a lot of external opinions and external like, yeah, external factors that make us feel like we have to do a lot more than we really do, and then that can pull us out of that motivation, or that it can like pull us out of doing something in a way. Yeah, so, you know, just be easy and gentle on yourself, and just like and yeah, like to get motivated to do a really hard session, and to get motivated to run 50k a day is quite full on. Like, you need a lot of motivation to do that. But to get out and walk for 10 minutes a day, well, that's, you probably don't like, that's, you know, you just go do that, right? Like, that's, you don't need a whole lot of motivation if someone gave you a task of walking for 10 minutes a day. But if someone, like I said, gave you a task of running 50k a day, it's like two ends of the scale. So what are you unmotivated about on that? Like, what is it that's on that scale that you're unmotivated about? And then how can you take it back a little bit to then feel motivated to do it? Yeah, I don't know if that helps at all, Al, but like,
Yeah, it does.
It's just
Big picture thinking.
Yeah, and just being easy on yourself, you know, like, it's, yeah, I just feel like that, yeah, you people are a little bit too harsh on themselves to go and do certain things, and that's really hard to get motivated for sometimes. But if you take it back a couple of notches and a couple of degrees, and it's like, oh, you know what, like, fuck, I don't have to go out and do a hard session today. I know it says it on the plan, but like, plans are only there to be a guide. They're not there to be like a brick wall. So I've got to be flexible, and I only feel like doing 30 minutes walking today. I'm going to go do that because I'm more motivated to do that. So find where your motivation is, because doing anything is definitely better than doing nothing. Okay. Just like a really thin piece of paper in that phone book, just having small little consistent wins and small little consistent things, they're all going to add up. And you realize that missing a session or missing like this in a 4-year plan is actually like, it doesn't really, it's like a very, very small drop in a big ocean if you have that big picture kind of overview of the way you do things. So maybe that speaks to that a little bit as well. Maybe.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. All right. Well, that's it. We might wrap it up and let everyone take off on their Tuesday evening.
Go do the census.
Yeah, go and do your census if you'd like.
Yeah, I'll get back into that. But thank you so much for that. I thought that was really interesting and really helpful. Yeah, and I learned a lot. It's definitely been pretty engaging, like just learning a bit more about running and training in general. So yeah, no, thank you.
Solid, man. Of course, anytime. Yeah. Yeah, and obviously we recorded it all, so no doubt it will find its way in the world somewhere.
Yeah.
Wherever it's motivated to go.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we'll wrap it up and say thank you all so much. Amazing people.